Consent. Thou shalt have consent before you gather any information and before you distribute any information. So one of the places where I see consent being abused is you ever go to a trade show and you throw your card into a big bowl and they tell you you're going to win a prize. And really what you're going to win is being annoyed by them to buy a vacuum cleaner or something for the rest of your life. So what they can do is they can put a little sign in front of that little bowl that says, put your business card in here to be put on our mailing list and to win a prize. Then they've got consent. But they don't do that. They just say, put your card in here to win a prize. And I've told people, I said, so after you draw for the prize, you've got to throw away all those cards. No, I don't. I'm going to use them. No, you didn't have consent to use those. All you have consent for is to make a prize. So. Limited collection. You're not allowed to collect anything you can't explain why you need. Which makes sense. Government has to have 2 words for the same thing. Who can disclose the information? How do you retain it? So once you've got something confidential, you have to be able to prove that nobody except those who are allowed have seen it. You have to keep it somewhere safe. And how do you dispose of it? All these shredding companies that shred on your premises, why are they shredding on your premises? He drives out of my parking lot. I'm right on the Magazine Hill in Bedford. It's a big truck, drives out on the Magazine Hill, gets hit by another big truck, and then all my paper is blowing around in the wind. And if it wasn't shredded, that's a problem. So they shred it before they turn a wheel, or so they say. I've watched occasionally. So you have to know what the privacy policy is of anybody you give information to. So if you're going to hire contract people to help you out, and they're not on your payroll, what's their policy, or you have to explain to them what your policy is and make sure they're going to adhere to that. That they're not going to be saying anything about what they know because they work for you. Accuracy, if anybody calls up and says you've got the wrong information on them, you've got to fix it. Safeguards, we go on with this forever. How do you keep it safe? Is it a physical piece of paper? It's locked up. Is it an electronic piece of paper? Electronic piece of data, I guess. Then do you have passwords? Do you have encryption? How do you keep people out of your website? How do you keep people out of your computers? I've had 2 clients in the last few years who have lost their laptops out of their car, which, you know, it was one of those, which rules do you break here? But a client of mine went for a few drinks after work, decided that he had too many drinks to drive home, took a cab, left his car in the bar, left his laptop in the car. And what can one say about that? So his laptop wasn't there when he got back, and his payroll's in the laptop. So do you have a password on your computer? Do you have a password on your phone? Do you have a password on your iPad? If I could get a hold of your phone, I could get into your email. Okay. Is that okay? What's in your email that might be confidential? And would it be due diligence if you're carrying around a device that will get into your email and you don't have a password on it? I would say no. I think we're all breaking the rules if we've got any electronic device that's not password protected. Same with those USB sticks, those little memory sticks, thumb drives, whatever you want to call them. You've got a password on it? If not, it shouldn't leave the office. Because somebody picks that up, sticks it in their machine, and they don't need to put a password in, they've got all your stuff. There was a doctor at Debi who lost his job because he was doing mental health research and he had downloaded the mental health records of 2,000 clients onto a thumb drive, which he subsequently lost. On the subject of thumb drives, when you pick, if you see one and you don't know for sure it's yours, do not put it in your computer. Okay? One of the conferences I went to a couple of years ago was on electronic fraud and governance, and another riveting couple of days. You'd have been sad to miss. But what they talked about were the people they call fraudsters, people who are out to get you. And what they have done is they've taken a whole bunch of USB drives without any name on them, and they've put malware on it. Then they take these little thumb drives, and they leave them in public bathrooms and reception areas and on counters, any place they can get at. And what they have found is they have a pretty good success rate with people picking one of those up someplace, firing it in their computer to see what's on it. And there's nothing on it, but what's really there is a piece of malware which loads itself onto your hard drive. Then the next time you're online, it sends a message back to the bad guys that says, we're in, and then they can do whatever they want. So the rule of thumb for thumb drives is don't put them in your computer. All right, so what safeguards do you have on anything? How do you make sure that you're protecting all your paperwork? So think about the flow. Are you emailing board packages to people? Are you couriering board packages to people? What are you doing with confidential information that could go wrong? I have sent envelopes with confidential on the outside of them to people, and their secretaries have opened them. And so now, I put confidential on the front and the back. But some people just open stuff up. They don't look at the front end. No? So it's confidential in both places. What are you going to do? You can't keep somebody from opening that. Just because it says confidential, you're relying on their policies that they don't open something that says confidential. Openness, you've got to be able to explain how you got this information. And if the individual access one, if somebody says, I want to see the proprietary or the confidential information you have on me, you've got 30 days to show them what you've got. 30 days is long enough to do whatever you need to do. Challenging compliance. A while ago, when this first came in, one of my clients had a woman comes to work in the morning and there's a big sign up, happy 50th birthday, balloons, candles, large sign, much happiness. No happiness in her mind. She hadn't told anybody it was her birthday. She didn't want anyone to know how old she was. She felt that she'd been personally embarrassed and humiliated in public and much of that. So she complains to the privacy officer. Privacy officer laughs at her. Okay? Note for the future. Don't laugh at people who feel their privacy is pretty big. So she complained further, because the line of defense after the privacy officer is the provincial ombudsman. Right? So at this point, my client calls me and tells me this story. And I said, yeah, well, how'd you get her birthday? Well, we went into payroll records and we wrote down everybody's birthday so that we'd have a list of when the round numbers came up so we could have a party. Okay, so you're wrong. You're doomed. You lose. You're not allowed to use payroll information for anything else. Is there any other way you could have found out her birthday? No, she's not on Facebook. She never talked about it. You know, blah, blah, blah. Because a lot of people, you could muddy the waters, right? How many people have Facebook, at least the date, if not the year, or they've told somebody, or last year they got a cake, or what, you know, you got some way of doing it. So anyway, they paid her $10K and she doesn't work there anymore. But the fine's $100 grand. And $10K was a pretty good deal, considering they were totally responsible for the $100 grand. Because they have exactly done what they're not allowed to do, which is use confidential information for the wrong purpose. So now they have a form that says at the top of it, if you want cake on your damn birthday, tell us when it is and sign here. So they've got a consent form, which is perfect. So think about that. Have you got any cases where you've gone into anybody's payroll records to find out when their birthday is? Everybody's done it. It's just a question of, would you get caught? Because some people have a sense of humor and they wouldn't be on and on about that kind of thing. But this was one of those cases. So remember, if you've got information, what do you have consent to do with it? So, back to the ethics. We've talked about this. You have a code of ethics. If someone has been convicted of a criminal offense, can they serve on your board? So the question is, does your code talk about that? And what are we talking about? You know, simple possession when they were 15, or not 15, 19, I guess. 20 years ago. Is that going to preclude you from hiring anybody on your board? Are there kinds of crimes you wouldn't do that you would have trouble with? Financial ones? No? Or whatever. So it's something to think about. What's the deal? What can someone do or have done? And there's different rules for the CA profession. If you are convicted of drunk driving, you can't be a CA. What's the deal? Okay. Suspended, whatever. There's all kinds of issues around that being reinstated. What else? Then there's your staff. Look at these guys. When you want to be nice to them, this is a gender and racially balanced group of employees who all look happy and apparently have a uniform of some sort. So they're all dressed in white. So here's a couple of questions to think about. You only directly supervise your executive director. How do you know if the rest of the staff are happy? That's what I thought. So, you maybe have an HR committee person or whatever. What is the procedure for a person who works for the executive director to explain to the board that there's a problem? And do you have that procedure? And if not, why not?